Ladies and gentlemen, we are now live.
There you
and
are.
I, and I am so excited for this guest that I have with me today. Another amazing person that I met via the Clubhouse app. This was
Yes.
someone, if you were privileged to be in a room and she was on stage talking, you were always getting a master class. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined by attorney Jalene Mack. And I must say,
Hi.
when hello,
Hello.
when reading up on Miss Mack, the word that kept coming to mind was wow. And that's why I entitled the show Creating Your Wow. And I'm just going to give you guys a little background on Miss Mack. Now, the show is about an hour, a little more than an hour, maybe. So I can only give you a little bit because if I were to give you everything that she does, that would be the entire show. So, entertainment attorney, actress, producer, author, founder, and artistic director, Mac Performing Arts Collective entertainment attorney, Jalene Mack. That is only some of the things that she does. And I'm reading this from the top 30 women, and she was voted top one of the top 30 women. See what I'm talking about? Just going on and on. But let me read a little bit of this. Uh, Attorney Jane Lee Mack will not be overlooked when it comes to African American women emerging as leaders to the national forefront. Mack is not only an entertainment attorney, but also a successful integrator of the demanding roles of wife, mother, playwright, producer, writer, and actress. She is currently starring in the UMC Network Houston drama series Fifth Ward. Now, this is 2018, so I don't know if you're still in that.
We did 2 seasons.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
As Wanda Kennedy, she also founded Mac Performing Arts Collective Impact, a performing and visual arts nonprofit, and wrote the book, The Business of Stage, Screen, and In Between. Entertainment attorney Jamie Mack's practical advice for performers, playwrights, and filmmakers. She credits her successful career to keeping the focus on her long term goal to make an impact on the entertainment industry. Now, that is just a very, very, very small portion of what Miss Mack does. But Jaylene, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I can't leave out the titles of wife, mother, sister, daughter, best friend, all that good stuff too. Everything that keeps you balanced, right?
Yes.
So yeah, thanks for that warm introduction. It's funny because when I hear people introduce me, sometimes I go, "Dang, I do all that." Yeah, I do all that.
Yeah. And and
So,
and and then some. But we're going to get into all of that. But how did all of this start? Let's go back to a young Jaylene. How did all of this fabulosity start?
so I was an actress before I was a lawyer.
Mhm.
And I started as a little girl. I mean, my mom introduced me to community theater. I was in every school play, talent show, high school, elementary school. I marched in the parades in New Orleans. I grew up in New Orleans, so I'm enthralled in entertainment and music and culture and good food. But yeah, I was very, very involved. Speech contests, I did all those things. So I was very artsy. And so being exposed to community theater at a young age, that fascinated me for people to perform live and get all this applause immediately, right? And the costumes, and it just seemed so big and grand. And when I did speech contests, as early as second grade, standing on the stage by myself with the amount of confidence it gave me, right? And then as a little girl watching Kim Fields on Facts of Life, as Tootie. She was me. I went to a Catholic school. I wore a uniform. I was a little black girl in pigtails. And I went to high school with a majority of white students, 10% black population. So there were so many levels that I could relate, right? And then just all of that, collectively just tugged at me, right? And I always wanted to be an actress professionally. Got my first professional gig when I first got paid $150 to do a music video just like Compton with DJ Quick, and just continue to do it. But I wasn't foolish. I didn't want to be a struggling actress, and I said, yeah, maybe I go to graduate school, maybe I go to law school. Went to Xavier. We didn't have a theater program. but my mom lived out in LA. And so I said, well, let me go off to LA and pursue this career, right? But then I didn't want to go out there and fail and not have the resources and the experience and the knowledge that I needed. Because if you remember back in the 90s or the 80s, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Tony Braxton, TLC, these different music artists and athletes were having problems with management, stealing from them, right?
Yes.
Not understanding the contract. And so I didn't want to be that person. I said, let me go to law school. I think that'll market me better. And it'll give me the experience of contracts, understanding the small print, because you're going to always be your biggest advocate, right? And always have your own best interests. And so I decided to go to law school. And I thought, yeah, if I only make it through the first year, because a lot of people don't make it back. They say, look to your left, look to your right. Somebody's not coming back. And I ended up passing all my first year classes, passed the bar the first time. And I said, well, I'll just start an entertainment practice and pursue acting as much as I can. And some kind of way, I've managed to forge those two careers, their dual careers, and add the hats of TV, film producer, writer, and all the other things that I do with philanthropy. And it just made sense in my world. So, and I tell people, the acting part is still alive in me, and it's not a hobby. I make money doing it, and I'm serious about it. Serious about my craft, just as I am practicing law and representing clients every day to this day. So some people ask me, "Are you still practicing law?" Yes, I am, very much so. So that's kind of how I got there.
So you mentioned that you kind of began juggling both,
Mm-hmm.
and both of those careers or disciplines are disciplines where you have to be all in.
Yeah.
But you managed to do both. What was your secret sauce in being able to be an attorney and a working actress? Because you have a lot of actors and actresses that ain't working,
Right.
but
Yeah.
they title themselves actor or actress. So how were you able to? And if I'm not mistaken, you were married at the time. Were
Still
you?
married
So
almost
okay.
30 years.
So how were you able to do all of that and maintain your sanity?
Right, right. Well, as far as the family life, I have a very good husband. He's an architect, and he's a provider. He's the leader of our Mac Pack. And my kids are very sufficient and self-motivated and very independent, even at young ages. We believe in nurturing our children, not babying them, so that they can have their independence early. So the combination of the family unit worked well for me, having to travel and step away from mommy duties, or figure out how to balance all those mommy duties in one day. As you guys can see, I'm at a high school. In the back of me is a high school. And why am I in a high school doing my interview? Because my son is in a basketball tournament right in the next gym. But I managed to be here for him, and whipped out my computer earlier to do 3 contracts, and managed to do a few Zooms and be with you guys right now on this interview. So you just have to find those moments of prioritizing, right? What's important to you, what keeps you sane. And I always say, hey, if I got a list of 10 things and I only get 7 done, well, the other 3 are going to roll over to the next day. But women are naturally multitaskers anyway. That God built us this way for a reason. We have babies and push them out for a reason. We're built very strong and able to endure, and that we have the bandwidth to just figure it out. We're problem solvers already. So I honestly think women make great producers, because
Mhm.
we are natural problem solvers, right? and leaders of our households and stuff. So yeah, having a good friend support group, finding your tribe. I found a tribe on Clubhouse. I've had my tribe for some years in the entertainment business. There are business people that are in my inner circle. So, you definitely have to surround yourself with the right people so that you can continue to grow and strive and thrive with. And yeah, it's really just a combination. I'm not going to pretend that I haven't done what I need to do to
Mhm.
sustain my existence in this business. Obviously, I have God's covering as well. But I put the hard work in. I've studied my craft. I'm experienced. I'm in the trenches. I'm not just collecting credits. I'm doing the work, and that's what it takes. Because um, you, I do feel like I've mastered some things. I feel like I'm growing in some areas. I would prefer to keep growing in some areas
Mhm.
because every production that you can be a part of is going to be different than the last one. There might be some similarities, but there's always a difference in personalities, you know. So, but yeah, you just find a way to balance it all, and stay centered. I've managed to maintain decent health. I get up and I walk every morning. I think that clears the mind, gives me the physical strength that I need to sustain a 12, 14-hour day. And I'm not even talking about productions. I'm just talking about working for myself. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's a number of things to make it happen in the 30 years. And I've hit different strides, and I've had different things I've encountered to balance. But some kind of way I've just managed to still be here, almost like I said, practicing almost 30 years and in the business about equally as long.
Yeah, and you've done such a magnificent job because, as I was doing my research, I'm like, oh my gosh, she did this. Oh wow, she did that. Wow, she did that too. So I want to talk a little bit about your law practice and some
Okay.
of the people that you've actually represented, the Steve Harveys of the world,
Mm-hmm.
Raquel Robinson, some phenomenal people. So what was it like working with them, and what, if anything, did you learn from them business wise and how to navigate the business of Hollywood?
Obviously, I am about Hollywood, but I am not Hollywood. And I say that because I live in Texas, and I don't live amongst, all the politics of Hollywood, the networks, all these things um, that can kind of change you in a sense, right? So that's probably the beginning of how things started to work for me. But being in Texas, because we are not Hollywood and we're 1,500 miles away from Hollywood, in the sense of Hollywood being in LA, it was important to forge alliances so that I can create that access to Hollywood, not just for me, but for other people, which is why I started my nonprofit, because a lot of people just don't have access. And sometimes it's as simple as that to get your projects, launched
Mhm.
or packaged correctly. So, but certainly the relationships that I've nurtured personally, uh, and oftentimes they literally come from working on a project. And by example, I produced a movie called The Great Divide, which was based on a play, and now it's a movie. It's on YouTube, and it came out through E1 years ago. But Golden Brooks starred in our movie, and we forged a relationship beyond that movie. Stayed in touch, and she became my very first speaker at my nonprofit. So that
Mhm.
networking, or one of my nonprofit events. So that networking is very, very crucial. And like I said, nurturing those relationships is very crucial. But each project has allowed me to create new relationships with networks, distributors, and learn new things, and learn new systems and stuff. So super, super important. Wouldn't trade it. What I can say about people who are stars, you know, some people live in the stars, and then there are many stars that are very, very grounded, and those relationships are very sincere. And then you have a lot of people still live in the moment, and I'm not saying that's any of my clients, but I'm just saying it certainly is my experience with working with various people in the industry.
Mhm.
I will tell you, one of the greatest joys of my career early on was working for Steve Harvey, because Steve was a workaholic, as everybody can see to this day. But most importantly, Steve was always giving great advice. I remember running into him one year in New Orleans. He was sitting there, he was at the casino, and sitting there at a slot machine. And of course, he had his security and stuff nearby. But of course, I knew everybody. And I just happened to run into him because it was during Essence time. This is when he was still hosting. And we just sat there and chatted, and he just gave me just wonderful advice of balancing the things that I wanted to do at that time, some projects that I was trying to get off the ground,
Mhm.
building my nonprofit, stuff like that. And so there was a lot of those moments with him, which was great. And the work that I did for him, I took care of all his trademarks for nearly 20 years.
Mm.
And of course, Steve has evolved and done other things and moved on to host a number of TV shows and stuff. But this was more when he was still doing his stand-up comedy and things like that. But yeah, a lot of great relationships, a lot of athletes, business people, TV, film producers, directors, people behind the scenes, people in front of the cameras that I either represent, or I'm on their team, or I've worked with in some capacity. People reach out to me a lot to book talent. So that's been a plus because they know I have relationships with a lot of folks. I even cast, projects at this point just because of the relationship. So, in this industry, you got to be multi hyphenated, wear a lot of hats,
Mhm.
and of course that's going to sustain you as well. So hopefully I answered your question.
It did, but you know what? And you touched on something, and I'm glad you did because you reminded me because I wanted to talk to you about that. Being in Houston, Texas, because I'm in Philadelphia. We're right outside of Philadelphia, but born and
Hmm.
raised in Philadelphia. And I read an article where you were talking about bringing more of the industry to Houston,
Yeah.
and that's something that we're looking to do here as well,
Hmm.
because we're not close to California. We're not too far from New York, but there's really not that film feel here.
Hmm.
And I got the sense when I was reading the article that that was the same thing that was going on in Houston.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you're doing to bring more film to Houston, and as you said, to expose more Houston filmmakers to a wider audience?
Right, right. And so that is one reason why I started the nonprofit, to create
Hmm.
that platform so that undiscovered talent, aspiring talent, even veteran talent that still doesn't have the right access
Hmm.
or the right resources can definitely have that type of exposure and forge relationships with people in the industry. So we used to do an annual comedy workshop. We did it for like 8 years in a row, and I brought all these comedians in, and I had tons and tons of aspiring comedians in attendance, but a lot of veterans, because what I found with people who have been in the industry for a while, and they may have the experience and
Hmm.
they performed, everywhere, but they're like hamsters on a wheel going in a circle because again, they don't have the right access, the right alliances. So certainly creating platforms through my community service is one. Continuing to be a part of projects that focus on Houston. We just finished Hip Hop Family Christmas Wedding. It's a sequel to Hip Hop Family Christmas that aired on VH1 last year. The second one is coming out on November 30th. It's a network film for Paramount. It's through Jamie Foxx, Foxhole Company, Detori Turner, Greg Carter, with Nexus Entertainment as the production services, and a fun project, And so projects like that, involving MC Light, Neo, Kerry Hilson, Redman, Cassie, Bow Wow. We have everybody, Soraya. Everybody seems like is in the movie. But
Hmm.
those kind of projects highlight Houston, and it's a story about Houston. You mentioned Fifth Ward. That's a TV series about Houston. So I try to do as many things as I can within my bandwidth to spotlight Houston, certainly. But I'm also talking to networks, and there's a number of challenges that you may face there in Philly. One, we're in Texas.
Hmm.
Texas as a whole is a blue a red state, right? We want to turn it blue. I think if we would have got Beto in office, we would have had more entertainment. We would have had legalized marijuana. We would have had gambling. They all work together. Okay,
Hmm.
so that would have been nice to help boost our production uh, projects in the state. So that's been a challenge. We don't have the tax incentives that other states offer, like Georgia. But the interesting thing about that is we don't have state tax, so that's a good thing if you come right and produce here. So you're not paying state income taxes. That's a plus, but that's also the reason why we can't compete with Louisiana, because they have a
Hmm.
state tax fund they can pull from. But what I personally think is uh, you can still save money shooting here in Texas, because that $5 million movie that you would have shot in Atlanta trying to get the tax incentive, you
Hmm.
probably could have shot it for 3.5 here in Texas anyway.
Wow.
So I try to have those kind of conversations with people outside of our state. The Houston Film Commission, of course, is doing what they can do. But I've had some interesting conversations with some networks, and when we were pitching projects to film here in Houston. And one of the questions that an executive said at one of the networks, he said, "So you think you can get talent to come down to Houston to film?" And I was like, "What do you?" I didn't ask him to go shoot on Mars.
Right.
It's Houston, Texas, a progressive city, one of the most diverse cities in the country. Okay, and what are you talking about? We've shot plenty of movies here with stars. So and actors want to go where good projects are and where the money is. At the end of the
Absolutely.
day, everybody's trying to sustain their living. So it's kind of interesting, the hurdles you have to get over. I think with investors in Texas in particular, when you are dealing with people who don't understand how the film business works, that you have to convince them that a movie is another commodity to invest in, because, oil and gas, technology, there's those things are more tangible for them.
Mhm.
But I have to sometimes make them relate to, that experience that you have when you go see Jurassic Park in the big movie theater and you're feeling good about yourself and you want to see the next big movie. Give us the money to make those kind of experiences for you.
Mhm.
That's what we're asking you to invest in. So, but yeah, just anything I can do to be a positive beacon for the state. I'm a firm believer that I don't have to leave Texas to make it in Hollywood. Hollywood is really everywhere now. It's
Yes.
Atlanta, it's New Orleans, it's New Mexico. It's Michigan. We shot a movie for Lifetime A&E in Baltimore, called Safe Space, last year before last, and I think maybe it was last year. Came out last year. Came out January this year. Sorry. And so I definitely go where the markets take me. But my roots, my home, my kids. We stayed in Texas. Fortunately, we have Zoom. We have video conferencing. We have emails. We have flights. We don't necessarily have to be, in California or New York to make things happen. But I do think uh, Black Hollywood is small, and I say that
Yes.
because really, I don't. I can remember getting off the phone with Chris Spencer, who had just hung up with Bob Sumner. And Bob Sumner is in New Jersey. You guys might remember Bob Sumner, his Laugh Mob, and he discovered a lot of Black comedians during the Comic View days. But Bob Sumner is in New Jersey, Chris Spencer is in L.A., and I'm down in Texas. But we
Mhm.
all know each other, and we were all just in communication with each other. So that's why I'm saying Black Hollywood, really, those doing things and making things happen, and having the right alliances. It's really a smaller network than we think. And I can say honestly, Clubhouse did kind of do away with that 6 degree of separation, and it got down to you could be immediately in contact with somebody. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it did because honestly, when I would talk to people when I first got on there, some of the people that I that I actually met, yourself included,
Hmm.
I would tell other people this is the power of networking, but networking. Oh, what's the word that I'm looking for? Um, Authentically.
Yes.
If you're networking authentically and you're not networking transactionally, you
Right.
would be amazed at the relationships that you
Yeah.
can then build. Because, when I was, and I do not name drop, but I just wanted people to understand some of the people that I was now in contact with, and some of them I call my friends
Yeah.
because of Clubhouse and because of going into it from a authentic standpoint as opposed to, well, I'm just going to get something from them. So that's an amazing point. But I had
Yeah.
to ask you a question because I was listening to something, Miss Mack, and you, I've watched your acting reels. I'm going to switch it a little bit. I've watched your acting reels, very diverse and a very wide range. And I was actually watching a short film. Um, I wasn't able to watch the rest of it because I was at work, but it looked like you were about to put the roots on somebody. I don't know what short film that was. I cannot remember the name of that. But you had on a long wig. It was a gentleman and a young lady, and they were basically making fun of you. I can't remember the name of the movie. I'm going to have to
It was
figure.
a comedy.
I I don't know
You
because I
said a
was
long
only able
wig.
to watch the first couple of minutes of it. Um, but
It's in my current reel.
no, this was not on your reel.
Oh,
This was not on your reel. But as I said, I was doing research.
yeah.
I found that short film.
I can't remember.
I'm going to have to find the name of that movie. And
Yeah. Yeah. You got to remind me. Look,
but
I'm getting old.
but I wanted to ask you about how was it working with Cat Williams?
Yeah, my guy. Kat and I became friends after I played his wife in a movie called Treasure in the Hood. We shot in New Orleans. This was pre Katrina. Matter of fact, I think Katrina hit in 2004, 2005. So
Hmm.
the movie would have been 2003, 2004. and we shot in the, I want to say that's the upper or lower ninth ward, which was heavily affected. So a lot of good memories pre those Katrina days. Ronaldo Ray was in the movie with us too, but this cat had only done Friday After Next, the one that I think that's the one that he was in, or the
Yes.
one, right? I think that's the one that he was in, and of course he was still building his comedy career, and we just hit it off. And funny thing is, it was a comedy. We played. He was the pastor, and I was the first lady, but we were street pastors and first ladies. So his former life, he was a pimp, and I was his hoe. Okay, so slash wife, and so we've been reformed, and now we're on the street with our church congregation, right? We got like 5 church members or something, but it was hilarious. It was funny, and honestly, I love improv, and I'm good at comedy. I would say that to myself. I'm good at comedic roles.
Mhm.
That's something I pride myself on, and not saying it in an egotistical way, but I love doing it, right? So I
Mhm.
do throw myself into it, and that's one of those roles where we got to improv a lot. And he was one of the first people that I worked with in a comedic capacity like that at that level. That was like, you need to be out in LA, type thing, and which is a compliment, right?
Mhm.
But and of course, I'll take whatever I could get in terms of drama, and I enjoy some of those roles too. But comedy is just, I love comedy. I even tried stand up comedy years ago. I used to go to the open mic tons of years ago. But yeah, we just formed a very good relationship, friends to this day. Matter of fact, I saw him here in Houston. He was here about 2 months ago in concert,
Mhm.
I think, and I talked to him. But um, Kat gave me my first monies for a play that I did, my very first play that I
Mm.
did, and he was my very first sponsor. So just grateful for him, to this day. He's brilliant. He's super smart. I've been around him, and I remember a short story. I remember being with him and some other friends or people in his group, and we were all down in Marina Del Rey, and we were walking the pier, and there was a dead baby seal up on the shore, and in the distance you can see the mama calling for the seal. She had no idea
Mm.
her pup was deceased, right? So she was just putting the call out, but he just started breaking down all this information about seals,
Mm.
and I'm like, why would I even know that? Like, why would you even know that? You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like that. Like, how do you even know that? Like, who starts to research seals, right? But he just spits things out, and it's like, so he's to me, people who are comedians, or brilliant musicians. I mean, we got to say some things about Kanye, right? Kanye's on that verge of insanity
Mhm.
but brilliancy at the same time, because he's a musical genius, but then he's kind of, out there a bit. And I can't even say what he's saying is wrong or that he's not entitled to all his rhetoric or whatever. But there's something genius about him, right? And
Mhm.
I just think Cat's one of those people that's also genius outside of this, off the stage. It's very, very smart. So appreciate my friendship with him, and he's always supported me for years.
Well, they say that those two things occupy the same
Yeah,
brain space. So there's a very thin line between genius
yeah,
and insanity. It
yeah,
it it, it
yeah. It's
really
just
is. And it also just goes to, with Cat, people normally look at this
right.
and think one thing until someone opens their mouth.
Yeah,
And then you're kind of surprised at what comes out, not understanding that just because I look or sound a certain way has
right.
absolutely nothing to do with my education, because
No,
I've been around
yeah,
people that are coiffed and dressed to the nines and
I
are
agree.
absolutely ignorant.
Right, yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, when they say don't judge a book by its cover, that's
Absolutely not.
pretty accurate.
So you like comedy.
I do.
Tasha Mack funny.
Yes, Tosh Mack funny. Matter of fact, Wendy Raquel, my girl, one of my favorite people to watch because I think her comedic timing is so good, and there's things about her in that remind my friends of me in real life,
Yes.
and Yeah, I'm silly. I can be really silly. I know what I know, and I'm serious when it comes about the business and stuff. But I'm a good time.
Mhm.
Off being in somebody's courtroom. I totally enjoy life, and I'm super down to earth. And I think I get my humor, my comedy probably from my mom because
Mhm.
she's kind of she can say some things like mama, like my mom would be the person like, hey, how you doing, Miss Johnson? Oh, good to see you. Girl, she looks so raggedy. It's
Girl, who
she's
told her
so
to come out
bless you,
the house
baby.
with that
Kind
thing
of
on
thing.
her head? Lord Jesus. Girl, help her, Lord. Who told
Help
her to
her, Lord.
come outside
You know,
like that?
sometimes she's like that, but then she's toting her Bible and scripture or whatever. But I do think some of my comedy, just natural comedic ways or a sense of humor, maybe so much comes from my mom. But yeah, I love writing comedy. I love sitcoms. I've written sitcoms. But yeah, I do love that. I love horror. I love different genres as far as when it comes to acting and stuff. I've definitely had some good roles.
Yeah, but you also wear the hat of producer.
Yeah.
And you've produced some pretty phenomenal projects. And the one that you did for BET, I
North of the
had no
Tip.
idea. Yes. I had no idea that you did that because my wife and I watched it and we absolutely loved it. So when I again researching you and I saw that you had
Yep.
done that film, I said, "Oh my goodness, I really liked that film." I'm not going to give it away because people need to go watch it, but
BET Plus. Go see it.
that was a phenomenal film.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
and I find you're so welcome. And I find that, and I was thinking about that film earlier today because I knew that I would be talking to you. And as a man, you normally don't think that men are into the romance and the love stories. And I was saying to myself, I totally disagree with that because watching that film, I was rooting for them so
Hmm.
hard. And then when she went where she went and
Back
he
to Abu
stayed where,
Dhabi.
I said, now come on now, because I've been married for 30, going on 35 years.
Yeah.
So, been with my wife since we were 15. We've been together for 41 years.
Yeah. I
So
love it.
I believe in family and love and all of that stuff. So when they kind of went their separate ways, I felt some type of way about that. So I want you to talk a little bit about when you're targeting an audience because, and here's what I was looking for, because you said, and it was so profound that I had to share it, there's always an audience for something.
Oh yeah.
And that struck me.
Yeah. It's true. If they can make a movie called Jackass, okay, you know what that movie's about? Just
Yes.
making a fool of themselves. And they made a Jackass too. You know what I mean? So
And made
if
money
there are
doing it.
movies, would you say that again?
Made a lot of money.
And made a lot of money. And so that's why I said there's really an audience for really anything, from webisodes, short films, webisodes, full features, uh, plays. I mean, there's always some subject matter that people are interested in. Even if we don't like Trump, we still watch him and listen to him because we got to hear what foolishness is going to come out of his mouth and be upset and be mad all over again. We're giving him an audience. So everything, you can find an audience for. And I think when it comes to producing your projects, there's really no excuse not to get it done. And I say that because unless you're got a heavy lift like a Jurassic Park type budget, if you got a narrative film, dialogue driven, not a lot of action, not a lot of explosives and stuff, there's really no reason not to make it yourself because people are making movies on iPhones. They're shooting with 4Ks, small productions. They might have four or five men teams. Carrying all the roles, but getting the movie done. And there's a place for it. And distribution is anywhere from the trunk of your car to the theaters and foreign distribution, right? And so you can do those if it's halfway decent. Decent. It doesn't have to be even a B+ movie to get distribution if you have, at least maybe a good log line, right? Good artwork, you know, a decent story because you can get an AVOD deal possibly, right?
Hmm.
And so you may not get any money up front, but eventually, if the movie makes money from rev share, from revenue, you'll get part of that share. And I know a lot of movies on Tubi that are doing well, and a lot of movies in Houston, a non-traditional entertainment market, being made. Matter of fact, I just wrapped a film, and actually, I was a lead detective in it with along with Jasmine Lewis. We just wrapped Sunday, and shot that movie over 2 weeks. Small crew, small. I mean, I think it was about a maybe a dozen people working crew, and that's not a lot by Hollywood
Hmm.
standards, right? And it's small cast, not a lot of extras, and we got the film done. And I think the film will come out. It'll come out next year. I think it's through Maverick, and I think it's on Tubi. Pretty
Okay.
certain I'm right about that. But there's really just no excuse not to get your movies done. The one thing I would tell a young filmmaker is don't rush to get it done and don't let it be an ego project. And I say that because you start to sacrifice and compromise some essential things if you're trying to make this a career and you're trying to take this movie and then build on it and take it to an investor and go, see, I've done this, can you invest in my next project? And it'll be even bigger and better because if you give me more money, I have more money to work with. I can do a better project, right? But you still have to give them something decent to even look at to trust that you'll be a good steward of the money, that it'll have decent production value, that you'll
Thank
stay
you.
on budget or under budget, and that you'll be able to actually sell it and deliver it to the network. So there's still the things, even on a small budget, I think you don't compromise. And starting with the script is one of them. I know filmmakers that literally write a script, run and shoot it. They've given it to nobody with a keen eye for writing, right? They'll give it to another writer that doesn't have much more experience than they do, and they've never given it to a writer that's sold to a bigger buyer, right? So that's one thing. Have a decent script. You have a decent script even when you sometimes don't have the best, the strongest actors. If the story's interesting enough, sometimes we'll hang in there, right? Now you can't put horrible actors in there, and you can't put an actor that doesn't have enough experience to carry the film where it becomes distracting. But it's okay if you got somebody making a cameo and they're the waiter and they've never acted before, you just need them to say one line. We get it. That's fine. But still, if you can have a decent cast, even if you don't have big stars, because you don't have to have a bunch of stars now to get movies out. These streaming services are making stars out of
Yes.
movies because the movies are being seen, right? And sometimes you luck up with not even luck up, but you're so prepared that when the opportunity comes, the star, the moon, the sky, everything's lined up, that you end up having that best kept secret, and the thing that people slept on, and then it becomes this little hit, and before you know it, you're really off to the races and making more projects. But don't skip on the don't skip on a good script, and I'm talking some basic things, but I can tell you, even when you shoot, you don't have all the right money, or you had enough money, you thought you got it all right. There are some things that distributors, it's one thing to be able to get AVOD and go to Tubi, and I'm not knocking Tubi at all, but you want to get the deals where you get some money up front, right?
Hmm.
And so, but some of the things that I know, particularly that networks look at when they're vetting these films to see if they want to acquire them, they look for those rookie mistakes, in filming. They're looking for, shooting against white walls and all these shadows. They're looking for placement and blocking of actors and cameras and lighting and sound quality. They're looking for those things. So you can't skimp on those things, although you have very little funds, right? Anyway, that's my 2 cents about that. I want all filmmakers to not just sit and wait for somebody else to give them funding and lift them up. Find ways within your resources to get the film done, because again, there's so many ways to get it out. There just is. You can put it on your own YouTube channel.
Yes.
I know I have a comedic friend that had a deal with a major network. They ended up not doing it. He put it on YouTube, millions of followers, millions of streams.
Hmm.
So there's really just no excuse not to produce your content and get it out there.
And everything that you said is just so spot on. And one thing that I always try to impart to filmmakers, especially young ones, is people are consumers and they're visually consuming your content. So you want to make it as pleasing as possible, because you wouldn't go to the restaurant and eat something off the floor. So then why should someone sit and watch a movie with bad lighting, bad sound, bad story? Why would they do that?
Mm-mm.
So you have to look at it through the lens of they're visually consuming your content, and they call it's called content consumption.
Right.
Content consumption. They're consuming it visually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's no different. So it's a product, and most filmmakers don't think in those terms of their film because they're creatives. I get it,
Yeah.
but they're thinking in terms of, well, I'm just creating. But what are you creating? Something tangible. Going back
Right.
to the investors in Texas, you're creating something tangible. But that leads me to the last thing, but one of the most important things that I want to talk about, because everything that you just covered regarding making a film, you are a published author. And basically everything that you just talked about, I didn't get your book yet, but I'm going to get it. I got my phone in the other room because I got it. I got to order it off of Amazon, or would it be better ordering it through your website?
Amazon. Yeah, it'll
Okay.
take you to Amazon anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your book, because I was listening to an interview you did with the gentleman. Oh goodness gracious, I can't remember that gentleman's name, but you were talking about your book in depth, and basically everything that you just talked about, I'm sure is in your book. So let's talk about your book.
Yeah. You know the thing with my book, I wrote the book. I started the book initially because
What's the first of all? What's the title? I'm sorry.
it's the business of stage, screen, and in between. So it's my advice to playwrights, producers, performing artists, filmmakers, performing artists. And I wrote the book initially because I was a first time playwright. I don't have a theater degree. I just have the experience of being around theater, being an actor, writing some, and being the lawyer, right? So I had all these hats, and I decided I was going to produce my first play, which was called Off Hollywood, and it's loosely based on my life. Well, through that experience, I learned a lot of ups and downs and how to navigate and stuff. So I said, you know what? I think I'm gonna write a book about this because there has to be something for people who've never done it before, right? Don't have, a degree in theater, but got questions and want to do this. So I started writing the book. Well, before I can finish the book, I did my second play. I said, okay, well, let me go back and add, notes about that experience. And before I could finish the book, the second play became a movie, which is The Great Divide, the one that I said Tashina Arnold and Golden Brooks, Richard T. Jones, Darren Henson, all of them are in the movie. And so now I had to go back and talk about turning your play into a movie. But when I got finished with the book, as you'll see if you read the introduction, when I got finished with the book, I realized it's not a book about theater. It's really a book for entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
And I say that because even people who are not in the industry like the book, because I tell you about how to find money, how to maximize ticket sales, how to the importance of insurance, talk about contracts, trademarks, setting up your LLC. You follow me? Business plans. All those things are in the book. Matter of fact, I have 4 ebooks coming out next year, and one of them is about finding money. So, it just covers so much in the, sorry, somebody's passing behind us. It covers so much in the, about the industry in general as entrepreneurs that the book became more than just about theater. And so, no matter if you're a filmmaker, whether you're a comedian, actor, playwright, producer, there's something in there for you. And even if you're not in the business, but you're an entrepreneur, there's something in there for you. Because again, I'm a lawyer, so I'm really talking to a client that's in business, right? And the one thing that I like everybody to know, that if you're in this business, you are the business. So if you are a an actor, producer, you are the business. Unless the work that you're doing is for an employer, right? You getting the paycheck and you're on somebody's clock. Oh, that's different. But if you work for yourself, you're out here, running your podcast, you're out here producing your movies, you're out here acting, and whatever. You're the business. So what do they say? Show business is what? 10% show, about 90% business. So that's what the book is very helpful for. And it's only like $30. I wrote the book originally in 2017.
Mhm.
And I was gonna do a second edition, but then I realized, you know what? I got a lot of ebooks that I still need to put out. So the ebooks will be coming out next year.
And this is a book that everyone in this space needs to get, because one thing, and this is something that I like to do, because someone may have to actually sit down and talk to someone like yourself. I want to understand the language. So when you're talking to me, I want to understand what Jalene is saying to me. And one of the best ways to do that is to get a book that may have some terms in it that a lawyer would use. And let me be very specific, that an entertainment lawyer would use. Not
That part, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
not just a regular lawyer, but an entertainment lawyer. Because what I tell filmmakers oftentimes when they're talking about distribution deals, I'm like, don't go get a real estate lawyer to do a distribution deal, because there's language that even they won't understand. You look at lawyer and look at it in a monolithic sort of way, where
Mhm.
you need a specific type of person to look those contracts over.
Mhm.
So if you are in this space, if you're a cinematographer, gaffer, actor, actress, director, whatever, this is a book that you definitely need to get to understand, as you so eloquently put it, the business of this. This is something
Yeah.
that I talk about ad nauseum. I did a panel a few years ago, and I was in a room full of people, and I said, show of hands, how many filmmakers do I have in the room? And all these hands go up. And I said, show of hands, how many business people do I have in this room? Hardly anyone raised their hand. And I said, now, everyone that just raised their hand is a filmmaker. Just as you said, you are a business, you're a sole
Right.
proprietor.
Yeah.
What are you putting out content for? As a
Yeah.
hobby?
Right. That part. Yeah. No, it's true. And I'm glad you said that because two things. The book itself, the book is only $30. And oftentimes and one of the reasons why I also wrote the book was because I realized there's and started a nonprofit. I realized there were so many people that have the same issues. Oh, I don't understand this about my contract. What's a copyright? What's the difference between a copyright trademark? Things like that, right? So I charge $400 for a consultation by Zoom. I charge $650 for a consultation in person. My book is only $30. So you get a lot of advice in a book for $30 that you can keep. So I always let people know that, and they don't have to buy the book because the book doesn't pay the bills, right? But it's just, it's another way for people to save money, right? Than going to a lawyer all the time. But I do say that I'm glad you said don't just go to any lawyer because I find that somebody will get a contract and they're in the entertainment business. Let's say it's a talent contract. Well, I sent this to my uncle who's a will and trust lawyer, and he said, right. So the entertainment business policies, practices, the language, the lingo, all this, it is so different and unique compared, just like accounting principles have certain, things that mean certain things in accounting. We have certain things that we say over in the industry or why we do something. And then the one thing about the industry is super universal. Like however we do it in Georgia, we do it in California when it comes to the industry. Now, if you're talking about the laws of the land, that's something different. But the industry itself practices policies, how things are normally done, it's pretty universal. Um, but you have to know, you have to have the right lawyer. Now, I do want to point out there are entertainment lawyers and there are production attorneys. So if you are a filmmaker and you're about to produce a movie, make sure the entertainment lawyer that you're talking to, that you expect to handle all your contracts related to your production, understands what it is to be a production attorney. Two different things. So, an entertainment attorney, which I am that, I practice in various areas: film, actors, comedians, music, right? Contracts, very transactional, the business side, development, all those things. So that might be the entertainment side. Maybe I have a client that's putting on a concert, that's the entertainment side. But then if I have a client that's producing a movie, I have to understand the phases of production. I have to understand what's the goal here. What does this production services contract mean? I have to be able to tell my client you need a production services contract. I have to tell my client, show my client, produce for my client cast agreements, crew agreements, vendor agreements, location agreements, clearances. So that's totally different from somebody who might be an entertainment attorney, might have a relationship with a network, but they're not in the weeds of filmmaking. Two different attorneys. So that's another thing that I like to stress to individuals when you're seeking an entertainment attorney, because I know I was just talking to another attorney about a project, and they this one project had a production attorney, but the only thing they did were the initial cast contracts. Didn't do day player agreements, didn't do you
Mm,
know vendor agreements, didn't do location agreements, probably because they didn't know to do it, or
mm,
didn't know how to do it, or a little out of their league, but it just money sounded good, right? Or it's a for whatever reason that they joined the team. But that's also important if you're a filmmaker, or if you're a director. Just because the person's an entertainment attorney, that could be that, again, they have clients in the entertainment business, their focus is music, but here it is, you're a director and you're asking them to look at your director agreement, but they don't have a sense of what it is to be a director, what it is to be a visionary, what it is to take that script and the time it takes, and the fact that maybe you want your own editor, maybe you want a choice to have your own DP. Is that in the agreement? But all those kind of things. So I just want to point that out to our filmmakers out there, young and old. Make sure that you're picking the right attorney that understands what your needs are, and can anticipate your needs, because that's what, when you fully engage your attorney in the process, then they can definitely take that ride with you.
wow. So from minute 48 to minute 51:35 of the podcast, you were just given a master class. And Jaylene probably just saved somebody thousands of dollars and a lot
I
of
hope so.
headache. And this is why it is so important to do your research and to find the right people for the particular project that you're undertaking. But this has been absolutely phenomenal. So what's next?
So uh, as I told you, the film we just wrapped was Bayou City Murders. That'll come out next year. There's the film that we just wrapped for the network, that'll come out on Viacom November 30th, A Hip Hop Family Christmas. In Houston, we have, well, actually, there's another film that we're going to be going into production on, which is a horror film called Trap House. That'll be shooting next year. TV series coming out that has distribution already. The other movie has distribution already. So a lot of things either in development slash pre-production, post, things like that. Several projects under the radar in hopes that we can get them slated for 2023. I'm on different teams that I'm very that I serve as the attorney over business affairs, business and legal affairs. And that's another thing. You have some attorneys that's over business and legal affairs, which could be an entertainment attorney, maybe, but or maybe not. Kind of depends, because business and legal affairs could just be the business of that company that's in the entertainment industry, but it may have nothing to do with productions, right? Maybe you're dealing with their mergers and acquisitions. So there's a lot more hats for us lawyers in the business. But in Houston, we have a uh, holiday party coming up on December 2nd here in Houston. And it's for all those in the entertainment industry. I have a flyer on my Facebook page, and it's open to the public. So that's coming up this December. Like I said, next year for me, 4 ebooks coming out. Pretty proud of those. They're already written. I've been rebuilding my website and stuff, so they'll be up there pretty soon. Doing a lot of things with Impact on the horizon. Pretty proud of it. We're about to do a turkey giveaway
Oh,
next week
nice.
for 50 families. We do that every year. And we'll have a toy giveaway in December. We do that every year. So we're more than just helping artists in the industry. We're about helping the community, and so that's always a plus. And I like servicing schools, servicing the youth. We focus a lot on high school students. I love focusing underserved communities that don't have means to arts and entertainment outside of the school. You know, I've had an opportunity to take Faison Love to one of the local high schools. I've taken Ella Joyce to one of the local high schools. So it's always nice to treat the kids to see people in person that they see on TV or in
Yes,
the movies. But yeah, that's some of the most immediate things coming up. If I can say this, if anybody wants to know
please.
more about Impact, please visit Impact on Instagram, which is at Houston Impact, Houston MPAC. And of course, we have a website, which is impact-arts.org. And again, Impact is MPAC. And they can follow me at Jalene Mack on all social media. My website is jalenemack.com, and that's JALENE, Mack, MACK. I tell people you can find me under my name on LinkedIn and everywhere because I am not running from the popos. So, so there's no bounty on my head. So you won't find me under, Sexy Chocolate '07. You know what I mean? I'm under my name.
And you know what? That is so. I know we're about to get out of here, but you know what? That is so important, and that is something else that I stress to young people coming into this business, because so it was taught to me by a gentleman, phenomenal actor, Nakia Dillard. Use your name,
Yes.
because I
Right.
was using everything but Star Child 5571.
Yes.
I'm like, yo,
Yeah.
people have a 7 seconds attention span. No one's going to search for you that hard.
Yeah.
So if I can't type you in and you pop up, I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
it moving. If I can't find Star Child and I find Jaylene, I'm going with Jaylene.
Yes, very true. And that's another thing that I learned working with Steve. So Rushion McDonald is a very, very good friend of mine. He's like a big brother. He's a business mentor, and I'm actually his general counsel for his podcast, Money Making Conversations with Rushion McDonald. And Rushion and Steve used to be partners. Rushion was Steve's manager for like over 20 years. And but the one thing that I learned between the two of them was don't be afraid to make money with Black people, number one. And don't be afraid to brand something with your name. So that's why it was called the Steve Harvey Morning Show. And that's why you see Tyler Perry's Oval Office or whatever it is, or any one of his shows. So it's important to brand your name and to be found under your name, because otherwise it's confusing and nobody will ever find you, number one. But and I actually do a presentation for young entrepreneurs about identifying your brand and how to protect it. So as a lawyer, I tell you things that you can do to protect your brand. So yeah, I think it's very important to brand properly and use your name, use your real name, your government name.
Look, I tell people all the time, Google me, because it's all out there. Much like you,
Exactly.
I ain't running for nobody.
Mm-mm.
And especially when if I'm working with kids, and I always tell their parents, please, please, I truly want you to look me up to
Yes,
see that everything's above board, because I pop up, my wife pops up, my kids pop up, and everything that I've done in business pops
is
up.
there.
So it's all there, nothing to hide here. And you know what? That really puts people at ease.
It does. It does. And I've been thankful to be in this business without ever having an ad in the yellow pages when we were using yellow pages,
Mhm.
never having a big billboard. It's all my name. I'm like Tina Marie. Tina Turner. All I got is my name.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm glad my reputation precedes me. I've never done anybody wrong, never stolen money from a client, never left a client hanging. I try to do right by people. Never had a grievance filed against me, and I just believe in doing the work, being genuine, and good things come. And I formed a lot of good, long-lasting relationships with clients that come back to me that I haven't seen in years. Or sometimes they make me smile. I'll run into somebody and go, "Hey, you did my divorce." So I used to be family law 1,000 years ago. You did. True story. On the dance floor, all my friends know I love to dance. I could be out there by myself dancing on the dance floor in the club late at night, and a lady tapped me. She was like, "Hey, you did my divorce." She actually said this, and I was like, "Okay, can we not talk about that now?"
But she
you know,
seemed happy, I guess.
she was happy, and
She
I
out
even
there
had a lady
dancing.
one time tell me, "Hey, you represented my husband in the divorce." like she was thankful for it though. I was her husband's attorney. She was
Oh
like, "Girl,
wow.
yeah, blah blah blah." I was like, "I guess that's a compliment."
Oh,
She thanked me.
thank you.
I did family law, probably 20 years, where it overlapped with my entertainment practice, and then I stopped doing family, stopped doing criminal, landlord tenant. I did a lot of stuff. I worked eminent domain, administrative cases. I did trial work, both on the civil side and criminal work. I used to be the criminal appointed attorney of the week in misdemeanor court. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, guys
Wow. Wow.
got a real legal background. The stuff
Wow.
I do now
Wow.
is transactional, just because I'm older, you know.
Right. But in closing, I just have to say this: being on Clubhouse, and it's interesting, you really know the type of people that you're dealing with when they speak highly of you when you're not in the room. That is a true sign of if someone is genuine, if they're authentic, and if they are who they say they are.
Yeah.
And I can not tell you how many rooms that I've been in on Clubhouse, and Jalene's name would be mentioned, and the
Oh,
speakers would come off their mics and just start gushing like, "Oh my gosh, if you Raiders Coffee Talk, oh gosh, what is his name?
Brian.
Brian Raider.
Yeah.
Oh, he just speaks so glowingly of you, and so many other
Uh,
people just speak so glowingly of you. Someone says, "Well, I need something." They say, "Well, you know what? Check out Jaylene because she will." And it's like, okay, see, that right there tells you all
yeah.
you need to
Yeah.
know when people speak highly of you when you're not around. So that's something
Oh,
that everyone can keep in mind. But Miss
thank
Mack, it
you.
has been an honor. It has been an absolute privilege to have you on my show. You definitely have to come back because 1 hour has not even scratched the surface of
Never enough time.
everything that you do. And plus, I know you're there, with your son, and I'm sure is he playing right now, or is
They
it?
should be done.
Oh wow.
And I think his next game is tomorrow. I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
It was a school day. It was a tournament that started at 9 o'clock this morning. So
Ooh.
we're like an hour and a half from my house. We're far
Ouch, ouch,
in
ouch,
Texas.
ouch.
Yeah, everything's spread out here. I'm about an hour and a half from my house.
Oh boy. Well, again, thank you so much. And again, it's just I've learned so much tonight, and that's one of the reasons that I love doing this podcast, to talk to people such as yourself to make me better at what I do. So I'm so excited about reading your book. I can't wait to dive in. Ladies and
Thank
gentlemen,
you.
do yourself a favor, go to Amazon, get that book, because here's the thing, and we're definitely going to get out of here. You are not spending money. You are not spending money. You're investing in your business.
That's right. That's exactly what it is. And it's a conversational book, so it's a fun read. It's not boring.
Give us that name of that book again.
It's the business of stage, screen, and in between. It's my practical advice for filmmakers, performing artists, and uh, music artists.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed the podcast, please share it with your friends. This is definitely a podcast that you need to share with your friends. And get me up in the ratings. Everybody always talks about the ratings, but yeah, share it
That's
so you can
right.
get me up there in those
That's
ratings, because we are giving some phenomenal information on people of color, dynamic people of color in this business doing absolutely amazing things. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, like I always say, love this like a hobby, but treat it like a business
that's right.
to your success. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Bye from Texas.